On today's Prophetic Rewind.
Just recently I prophesied about how the enemies of Israel will be brought down every single time. But there is an uprising and the enemy's trying to do this again. And so that's why we prophesy and pray against this demonic spirit. It's so amazing because when Katrina, and I'll tell you, introduce them formally, and Andreas, and when you see some of the stuff, it's just going to blow your mind. When they came on the scene, we didn't know that they were here, and sent us an email with their investigative video footage, which you have to see. But what we're going to do is we're going to get you into their link and onto their website and lead you that way so you can learn more about it. It's not so much the attacking Martin Luther, because that's what it's going to sound like. It's not about that. It's about a spirit.
Yes.
A spirit that is operative and can use people like someone as powerful as Martin Luther to bring about an idea, a thought, that what we're doing is God's work. Well, when I watched it immediately, the minute I looked at this, I said to my wife, "You have to watch this. It's shocking." But it is something I needed you to know about. And if you happen to be a Lutheran, don't get mad with me, please, when you go to the Lutheran Church. Please, this is about, as I said, it's not about bashing one person. It's about how something was sparked off way before. We go back thousands of years when the enemy focused in on God's inheritance and God's promise and said, this is his people, and whatever God loves, whoever God loves, whatever God prizes and cherishes, the enemy will always come in and try and use voices even that sound like righteous voices, people that are even ministers, and usually a lot of times it is. Think about Jim Jones, how he started out. He started out with a good heart. He wanted to do something, and power and whatever came into it, the enemy got into him and eventually killed how many people? And a cult was formed. So when they came on the scene, I said, please come here and speak to our people. This will probably be broken up into various shows as well. But the people are going to hear from you now. But let me introduce them first of all. Katarina, I'm going to call you that, if you don't mind. I like it. Sigling is the founder and pastor of Glory International Church in Germany, and also Reich Christian Center. That's the pastor. Andreas Fisher, and of course I saw the thing with you, your wife as well, Vivian. He's a school teacher, but also a man of God, and produces the videos for, including the one that you're going to see, and excerpts of it through the show today. So, please feel welcome. Thank you for being on the show with us today. I've heard that you can actually speak English. So, but she's a glowing lady, and just a little bit of time that I had with you guys yesterday was fantastic. Please feel welcome, and my warriors greet you, and thank you for being here.
So, thank you very much to you, and it's a great honor to be here for us. Thanks. We feel real comfortable here.
Thank you. I'm so glad you do, even though it's a very squashed little room. We are building our own building, and we'll be in a much bigger building in the future. But our people appreciate this. I also kept the crew on here because we could perhaps interact back and forth. I really mainly want to hear from you today, and your own feelings. I know that you were born in Romania, and that there was a tremendous amount of oppression there, and you know all about that. You have a tremendous story by yourself. What is the website? We can have their website so we can go to?
Glory-International.
There. I want everybody watching now to go to this website. It's, of course, www. We don't have to say it anymore. Glory-International.net. Okay? Or Rhema-Foundation.de. Go there and read her story. It's amazing. Okay, how did this all begin? What got you so passionate about this whole situation? You live there. You understand. You have more passion about it than we do. You've felt the oppression. You've even gone you've been under it yourself, the persecution. Tell us a little bit about the story and how you got to this place.
Well, as a church, and we are confronted with persecution in Germany. And this comes from the spirit, as you told, Kim. So there is a spirit thing involved in that kind of stuff, and this is a spirit of misanthropy. And this comes actually from the Middle Ages, and Martin Luther was kind of an initiator of this spirit. So he was a man who was full of hatred, and he had this hatred against the Jews, and not even against the Jews. He did have this hatred also against women, against disabled people, against so many people he couldn't have control over them. And so that's how it started in former times. He would persecute the Jews. He would also persecute any kind of preachers and who didn't belong to his church and didn't belong to his kind of way of thinking and to his ideas. And nowadays, this spirit is well active. We got to know that the spirit was active in the Third Reich, but it's also nowadays in this historical state churches. We do have them in the Catholic Church and also in the Lutheran Church. And
Explain to me what is a state church, because Americans wouldn't really understand that really. What is a state church? Perhaps you're not a state church, are you?
No.
You're a charismatic word of faith type of church.
That's right.
So
Yes.
what is the state church then?
So these are the historical churches, even Catholic and Lutheran churches, and they do have deep contact with political issues, and they try to control everything. So they are taking over control over other Christians, over other denominations in Germany. They do like to control anything they can. So, and those churches who would not submit to their control would be persecuted by them. So they got sacked commissioners to do this stuff.
I see.
This way.
Ich sage es auf Deutsch. I speak German because it's
That's
really
fine.
important, and so my English is
You
not so
wanted to
good.
come across correctly,
Yes,
I understand.
yes, because it's a state church, because also der deutsche Staat erhebt die Steuern für die Kirche.
So it's because that the German state, the government, takes the taxes on behalf of the churches. Therefore, we call them state churches. You know?
I see.
So
Yeah,
this
yes.
comes automatically. If somebody is baptized as a baby, he would be just a member of their system, and if you go to work, would be employed, automatically the state would take the taxes on behalf of the state churches, and there's a cash flow to them.
Das ist das große Problem in
And that's
Deutschland.
the big deal and a big problem in Germany.
Und wenn Menschen aus der Kirche austreten, verliert die Kirche die Steuer.
And if somebody would quit being a member of those state churches, they lose their taxes. So it's about
all about
financial
money in the end,
issues.
yeah.
Yes, it's
issue.
money. only
Now,
money.
you, as your church, we'll come back to the neo-Nazi, the whole thing. But let's just hear about your church. So if you're not a state church, or can you operate freely and without limitation, or do they put pressure on you?
Yes, that's right. Of course, they do put pressure upon us. So the matter of fact, it's this way. You have to found an association to operate as well concerning the laws of our state. But if the state churches would find out there would be some people coming to a new church, to a new founded ministry, something like this, they would try to get the people away from them.
You know, it's so strange. When you think of Europe and Germany, you think it's so free, it's such a liberal country and all that. But when it comes down to this, there's still that control and still that demonic spirit of religion
Yeah.
that
Yes.
wants to control the minds of the people so that they cannot
Yes.
operate freely.
Yeah.
Die Deutschen leben in Angst.
The people in German do have the German Angst. It's called the German Angst. You have probably heard of this. They are afraid of this system that's around us.
Und viele Aktionen gehen von den Leuten aus, weil sie Angst haben.
And many actions come forth because of this issue.
Und die Kirchen schüren diese Angst.
And these churches try to do their best just to improve this
Weil
being
sie
afraid of everything.
Weil sie durch die Angst die Menschen gefangen halten
Because of this,
und
they
abhängig
try
machen.
to keep the people in bondages.
Und die Menschen, die handeln eben aus dieser Angst heraus.
And therefore, the people would put action because of this. They handle it according to their inner state or inner feelings. You see?
Yes.
See, and it's subtle. It's very subtle, this thing, because I had a vision, and I saw Germany and saw it in its, and still propagating this lie very subtly, anti-Semitism. So I had this vision, saw the whole thing, and that's why I started getting more interested in it. I've just never spoken to anybody from Germany that actually has said that this spirit is still there and evident and arising.
Hannah, if you could share something we saw on the street that was actually shocking to us, what we saw. This is in Berlin, in the
Right.
middle of the street.
It was almost as if it was on every corner. We were only in Berlin, so this is obviously just one small part of Germany, but on each corner of the streets that we were on, we saw paraphernalia or gas masks that people were selling, Nazi garb, whatever, and it seemed to me like it was mainly Muslim
Yes.
guys, and some of them were even praying while they were selling these
And
items.
singing, I heard they were singing.
Yeah, they
too.
were singing.
Which goes to directly what you prophesied about, Kim, about the Fourth Reich arising, about Muslim influence on the youth
On
of
the youth,
Europe,
yes.
and we're seeing it now. It's you almost minimize what the Jewish people went through in the 1940s by minimizing the Holocaust, by actually selling gas masks. And what struck us was we had just visited Auschwitz the day before, and then we're seeing in Berlin these gas masks. Donné, you mentioned something earlier to us about how Hitler and the Third Reich and various leaders of the Third Reich not only subscribed to maybe what was taught in the religion of the church at the time, but also they expounded, they grabbed some things from even occultic materials.
Yes. I just recently did some research on this, so I won't have too many facts, but what I did find was that even further back than Luther, they also were basing a lot of what they believed on Nordic mythology, like the swastika being the hammer of Thor, who was a god in Nordic mythology, which I found quite interesting, and especially Himmler, who was involved in a lot of occultish things. He carried around a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and believed in reincarnation as well. And so it seemed like he was really a little bit crazy, because he was borrowing from all the different religions the things that he liked. And then another thing that I found extremely shocking was that he had a breeding program going on prior to World War II and into World War II. Between 1935 and 1945, he bred 11,000 people, children, and they have video of tables full of babies that grow up and never know their real parents. And they would get, they looked for specific Aryan traits. So they would go to different countries and look for, they were measuring the forehead, measuring the fingers, measuring the feet, because they believed that there was a race of people who they called the sons of God, or God men. And they were going to breed a race of these God men. So anybody who didn't fit into that category, they wanted to get rid of. And they did a lot of experimenting on a lot of Jewish and other, mentally challenged children. And they would make propaganda films and say that they were freeing them from the bondage of this body. So it was okay for them to be doing experiments on them and then killing them. But Himmler's, it was, the breeding program was called the Lebensborn, which it says is in Old German is the spring of life or fountain of life. And that was his program. So anybody wants to look it up, you can look it up online.
What was the Superman thing?
Yes, well, that was with Nietzsche. Now, if you look at Nietzsche's Übermann, he had the Superman thing. This was the same thing. They were breeding these supermen. So they believed that, you know, the tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, this Aryan look, that was the Superman, and the rest of everybody else who didn't fit into that category had to be gotten rid of, basically.
So there's a combination of different philosophies and religion. Yeah, yes, we want to get to back to Martin Luther, because it is important to listen to some of the things that were said, and the quotes that absolutely shocked me. That when a man of God or a man of the cloth makes these statements, there's something spiritual. There's life and death in the power of the tongue.
We do have a false form concerning unity in Germany.
Ich nenne es eine gewisse Form von Kontrolle ausüben über das Leben von Menschen.
And I call it kind of a control having over the people's life.
Wenn ein Mensch aus Gott geboren ist, dann ist er Licht, empfängt er das Licht Gottes
So if
durch
somebody
das
is
Wort durch
born
Christus.
through Christ, he receives the light through Christ.
Wenn ein Mensch nicht aus Gott geboren ist, ist er geistlich tot.
If he's not, he is spiritual dead.
So you're saying that the state church doesn't believe all that?
Nein.
They don't believe
Nein.
it.
No, they don't.
Nein.
Okay. There are a lot of churches, that are like that in America as well, and in the world, and where you can tell the difference between someone that's had, the rebirth experience and the kingdom of God displayed in their lives. It's just that our concern is that the spirit that was released through Luther and various other ones at the time is still in Germany and in Europe. That's the big thing, is to know how we can combat this in prayer. Because you got many people watching right now saying, okay, so we've got a problem there, and we need to pray against this, because obviously there's an uprising against the Jews again, and we would imagine that Germany would never be a part of this, but yet we saw signs of it when they were there, that there is anti-Semitism and hatred for the Jews again. Yeah. It's coming up. The 7-point plan, can you tell us what that was?
So it's persecuting the Jews. So burning their synagogues, taking away the Bibles from them. They should be persecuted and treated very bad. You should build up some camps, and they should be sent from this country.
And Luther actually wrote that?
Luther actually wrote that.
It's so hard to believe. It's just, I believe you, but I'm just saying, it's just...
I can prove that. That's no problem.
Well, I want them to be able to watch your video.
Yeah.
But because that's where it started.
Yeah.
But we speaking about today as well. What that's where it started, and of course we see now, like Wagner was influenced by it, and even Frederick. But it's what I'm saying is, that's what year was that he actually did that? He spoke these words, he wrote these things. When was it? What year was it? What century was it?
Martin Luther. It was early 1500s.
It was in the 1500s. Yeah, sure.
So in other words, he actually wrote that they must be killed and they must spit on them. I think some of your quotes here, or the quotes from Martin Luther that were on there, were shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, how can a person who's a Christian, a true Christian, ever speak like that?
That's incredible. So I don't have any words for this. So I was shocked too, and I just I can't find words to describe this.
I just want to take a quick moment, and I won't take too long, but I just wanted to interject here and thank all of you for supporting Prophetic Rewind. You have no idea how much it helps me with continuing the legacy of my father. Because, as many of you know, his prophecies are still coming to pass. And what God did in my father was not confined to one human life. It was what God was doing. And that's why Prophetic Rewind is so important, because there are vital and essential things for the body of Christ that could only come from a true prophet of God. And that's what Prophetic Rewind is all about. And so when you support Prophetic Rewind, you are supporting me continuing that legacy, not only of my father, but what God was doing through my father. And that's going to help me do so many things. There are albums, books of his prophecies, and so many other things that I'm working on. And when you support Prophetic Rewind, when you give an offering to that, you are still giving to the prophet and to what God was doing through him. So I won't take any more of your time because we're going to go right back in there. But thank you again, and let's go.
It's all control. It's all control.
Yes,
It's all control. All about
Isolation,
control, you see.
also man schüchtert, die Methode ist die, dass man die Menschen kritisiert, sie einzuschüchtern.
So the method is to criticize people, to make them feel afraid of them, the things that are going on.
Wir sind bedroht worden, ich habe Morddrohungen
So
bekommen.
we have been threatened, and Pastor Catherine received murder threats.
Wir sind erpresst worden.
There was a kind of extortion against us, so you have to do this, you have to do that. People were sent by the state churches, some delegated people, some representatives, and they told us, please fill in these forms and just give some personal things of the people coming to your church to our responsible pastors and leaders.
Priesters, yes.
So they would like to get the telephone numbers where the people
yes,
are employed
yes.
and something like this. So we didn't do that at all.
Yes. Das Problem ist, dass die Gemeinden diese Formulare von den oberen Sektenstellen bekommen haben zum Ausfüllen.
And the problem is the churches in Germany received those forms by the state churches.
Und bei Pastorentreffen und Leitertreffen haben wir dieses Problem angesprochen mit anderen Pastoren.
And at pastors and leaders conferences, we touched base on this issue.
Und wir haben gesagt, das kann man nicht machen.
And we said, you can't do that.
Aber
Actually.
sie haben es gemacht.
But they did that.
You know? Weil sie mit den Kirchen, mit den Sektenbeauftragten eine gewisse Form von Einheit haben wollen
Because
und ihr Image aufrechterhalten
They
wollen.
want to have their special kind of unity together with those people, with these sect commissioners, with the state churches, to have their religious peace, and they won't be persecuted by them anymore.
Und sie wollen nicht als Sekte gelten.
And they won't be accused of being a sect.
Und als ich den Dienst begonnen habe, sind
When I
mir
started
2 Leute geschickt worden von der Kirche.
This ministry, 2 people of those state churches, 2 representatives actually, have been sent by
Und das ist eine Drohung gewesen, was sie gesagt haben, aber sie sagten, sie würden mir einen Rat geben.
And it was a threat, but they say, we recommend something to you.
Ja,
Right. Right.
und sie haben gesagt,
And they
wenn
said-
man einen Dienst aufbaut, dann ist es wichtig, dass man zu den Kirchen und zu den Pfarrern eine gute Beziehung hat.
If you would like to start a ministry, you have to have a good relationship to the historical state churches.
So, und ich habe zuerst nicht verstanden, was die meinen.
And
Weil ich
first
hatte
of all, I
Frieden.
didn't get what they meant with it.
Und dann haben sie mir gesagt, das wäre gut, wenn die Leute zu mir in die Veranstaltungen kommen, dass ich diese Menschen an den Pfarrer melde.
Then they advised me to give the responsible state church pastors an idea which member would come to our church.
Und die persönliche Sachen der Leute weiterleiten.
To give some personal privacy from our church members or visitors to them.
Und das geht ja darum, dass man diese Menschen dann auf einer privaten Ebene über die Verwandtschaft kontrollieren kann.
So, and it's all about controlling the people on a private relationship.
It is. It's a
by
spirit.
the-
It's actually a spirit of witchcraft.
If the people are full of hatred, full of envy, this can happen all the time. And they would denunciate you if you belong to a minority, if you are not in the middle of the road doing mainstream things, they would accuse you of being such and that. So, you see.
Yes.
Wir haben noch eine andere Form von Krankheit in der Gesellschaft, was man Neid nennt.
So there's another sickness in our society. It's called envy.
Und aus Neid sind die Menschen zu allem fähig.
And out of envy, people can do a lot of things.
Und in Bezug auf Israel glaube ich auch, dass es geht nicht nur darum, nach Israel zu fliegen und Wiedergutmachungen zu bringen im finanziellen Bereich.
Concerning Israel, it's not all about bringing some financial support to Israel.
Weil das kann man ja bringen, um die Schuld wegzuwaschen aus Leistung heraus.
Because some people put on these actions to wash and cleanse them from their guilt.
Ohne dass das Herz sich verändert.
Without being involved in their own hearts.
Und die Kinder oder das gesamte Erziehungssystem müsste umdenken und die Menschen dazu bewegen, zu lieben den anderen.
And the whole education system should turn to tell the students how to love other people.
Und die Würde des Menschen zu respektieren.
And also to respect human beings in their way they are. Just
Weil dadurch würde man vorbeugen der Verachtung.
And then you can you can try to that people would not be like accused or threatened, something like this.
41% der Bevölkerung in Deutschland, die Menschen kennen ihre Rechte nicht. Die Menschenrechte sind nicht bekannt.
41% of the people do not know their human rights.
Wenn ich meine Rechte leben möchte,
If I want to have a lifestyle basically or that is based on this human rights,
und ich habe das Recht, meine Rechte
and I do
auszuleben,
have the right to live on this basic, I have to
das
know.
versteht der andere nicht.
And that don't understand other people because they don't know the Constitution and the human rights.
Das Problem stellt sich nicht in Bezug auf Toleranz oder wir müssen Israel oder Judentum tolerieren.
It's not all about tolerance or just to accept the Jewish people.
Israel hat ein Recht, einen Staat zu haben.
Israel has a right for a
Das ist
state.
ein Menschenrecht.
That's a human right.
Das ist eine Nation.
That's a nation.
Und wir stehen nicht da jetzt in Deutschland oder die deutsche Gesellschaft muss von diesem Gedanken von Tolerieren wegkommen
And
und
the society
zugestehen,
in Germany has to come far from this idea just to tolerate the state
sondern
of
der
Israel.
andere hat Rechte.
But they do have rights,
Und der andere hat das Recht zu glauben.
and they do have rights to believe.
Und ich bin durch meinen Glauben, durch die Rechte, die ich habe, bin ich nicht abhängig von der Toleranz von jemandem anders.
And in my faith, in my personal ideas or believings, I'm not just dependent on somebody else's tolerance.
Tolerance, yeah.
Ja, und Israel, warum sollte Israel abhängig sein von der Toleranz der anderen Staaten?
And why should Israel be dependent on the tolerance of other people?
Es ist eine Nation und diese Nation hat ein Recht, den eigenen Staat zu haben.
This is a nation, and this nation has its own right to have its own state.
Das sind Menschenrechte.
You know, you said
These are
something
human rights.
when we were talking the other day about if they would bless Israel, they would be blessed. And then you also mentioned that the idea that people had was because of Jesus saying, "You are of your father, the devil." That they thought that they based it on Jesus. They based it, said that was because he was saying the Jews, their father is of the devil, and you twisted that scripture. Is that correct?
The point is, somebody used this quote of the Bible. She was a sect commissioner,
Yes,
and she
the
said
sect-
this is concerning the Jews and not concerning the Christians. So
Okay.
Yes.
And that's where that. So they'll take any excuse. But you're right. Israel has the right to be a nation, but not based on other people's tolerance. And so I commend you for standing as a reed upright in that mire and that muck and that that hatred, and to stand for Israel, and therefore God will bless you and your house and your family, and of course you personally will be blessed, because that's why we believe in standing for Israel. And I just really want to thank you for at least giving us some light. And the whole thing came from somebody that was supposed to be a preacher, a good man, and speaking those words with such absolute hatred. You need to really get that. And how can they get it? Can they just go to the website and get it?
On the website.
Sure.
Ich segne Israel,
I bless Israel
weil ich es liebe.
because I love Israel.
Ich bin in Israel gewesen und ich bin fasziniert von diesen Menschen.
I have been in Israel and I'm fascinated by those people.
Ich habe mit Menschen gesprochen in Sderot, wo
I-
die Raketen, die Bomben fallen.
I talked to people in Sderot where the rockets and the bomb fell down.
Und ich bin sehr gerührt in meinem Herzen wegen dieser Menschen.
And in my heart, I'm like into it for those people.
Yes.
Wenn Menschen nach,
Feeling it like-
Menschen nach Israel
Feel for
fahren oder fliegen, jetzt auch aus Deutschland,
So if people from Germany fly or go to Israel,
sie machen es mit diesem Denken, ja, ich muss dann gesegnet werden.
they do it with this idea, I have to be blessed therefore.
Es
Oh, I
geht
see.
nicht
Okay.
um
It's
Israel.
self-centered.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, you've got to love. You're right. That's
Yeah.
what the Lord spoke a word through me about our president and said, if he doesn't have a captivating love
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Israel, it's all very well
Yeah.
to say it, well, I'm going to get something out of it, or as, put on a face and say, well, we're
Yes.
blessing Israel.
Yes.
There's no love for it. You're absolutely
Yes.
right. It's very, very powerful. And there are many people in this country that have a deep, sincere love for Israel.
Yeah.
And, just recently I prophesied about how the enemies of Israel will be brought down every single time. But there is an uprising, and the enemy's trying to do this again. And so that's why we prophesy and pray against this demonic spirit. You know what I love about the prophetic is you get so close to the heart of God. You hear His mind, His thoughts, what He plans to do. You need this on a regular basis, and there are millions of viewers all over the world that experience this twice a week, sometimes even more, at my den. And you can experience it as well. I would love to have you there. All you got to do is go to kim.tv. We have so much. We have worship, we have songs that come from the heart of God, prophetic words about things that have not happened yet. That's what we say to the people, welcome to the future. And I want you to experience that. I look forward to seeing you there.